Why do you need an umbrella policy? As your assets grow, you have more to protect. As you have more to protect, you have to make sure not only your auto insurance has the right liability coverage, but your homeowners has the right liability coverage. You would also want to make sure that you have an umbrella that supersedes above and beyond both your auto and your homeowners to make sure all of your assets are protected at the time of a claim. When you own multiple properties, you have a lot more that you need to protect. Number one, you never want to cross-pollinate the liability coverage. Let me give you a quick example. I have a homeowners, and on my homeowners, I have liability insurance. But now I also own a secondary home, which is my beach home. You never want to take your primary liability off of your primary policy and just extend that. That is really leaving you short of liability coverage. So the number one thing I will say is make sure if you have separate properties that each property has liability coverage on that standalone policy. That is tip number one. Number two, what you're always going to want to make sure you do is understand and make sure that the homeowner's policy is covered for you as a secondary home. If it's not a secondary home and it's rented to others, you need to make sure that policy is a rented to others type of policy. Understand, all insurance does not mean everything is covered. So if you purchase the wrong secondary home policy, you will be caught without coverage. They will deny that claim. So tip number two is making sure you're purchasing the right policies for your secondary home. Then you just get a secondary home policy. But at any point, if that's Airbnb or rented to others, you need to make sure you have the right policy. Otherwise, you will not have liability in the case of a claim. Why do you need an umbrella policy? First of all, an umbrella policy is a policy that works like an umbrella. It protects. So it is critical to make sure you have the right coverages on your auto insurance so that your umbrella would go above and beyond that liability coverage. What does that mean? That means that your liability coverage needs to be at $200,000 over $500,000 of coverage, or what they call 300,000 single limits. Let me give you a quick example. I'm in an at-fault accident and I rear end somebody and they sue me for $600,000 because they broke their back. I have $250,000 over $500. So that means that person injured who's suing me, I have $250,000 of coverage on my auto policy. Above and beyond that, as long as I have an umbrella, a standard umbrella is $1 million of liability coverage. So my next layer of insurance would go up to the umbrella. So the additional $400,000 would come from the umbrella coverage. Everybody needs an umbrella if you own a home. And as you build, your assets need to be protected. The easiest, least expensive way to cover your assets is through, so please, make sure you are covered properly, purchase that umbrella policy, and make sure all of your properties and all of your vehicles, including recreational vehicles and classic car vehicles, are put within that umbrella policy. If they are not added to your umbrella policy, they are not included. So make sure you include everything you want included, that you have the right protection. So how hard is it to get an umbrella policy? The first tip I would tell you is make sure you purchase an umbrella policy before you actually need the umbrella policy. Recently had a client and the client had 100 over 300,000. That's 100,000 per person, 300,000 for the whole accident. Those limits aren't high enough for you to purchase an umbrella. That client of ours had denied the coverage of wanting to purchase the umbrella, and their child was in an auto accident. They were now at risk of being sued for more than $100,000. The person they had injured was suing for more than $100,000 due to the injuries. What ends up happening now that you did not purchase the umbrella, you can't just go back and ask your carrier just to write an umbrella. Most carriers are not going to give you the coverage. So that is why it is important to purchase the coverage prior to needing the coverage. In most cases, if you don't have youthfuls, drivers at home, the umbrella is looking at $250,000 with two vehicles in a single home. Once you add youthfuls, then it gets a little bit more expensive. But it's still a very inexpensive policy to cover $1 million of your assets. Make sure you purchase an umbrella policy. It is critical to protecting your assets and your future income.